Hey everyone, MeltingMan234 here with another rant. Even though it's been so long since I've made one, I'm a bit rusty and I'm sure this rant's gonna suck. But anyway, when it comes to the movie industry, they make a boatload of films and sometimes they are successful enough to get a sequel. Now sequels have had their fair share with criticism. Sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad. It's the usual stuff like that. And then comes the second sequels. Now making a movie which is a sequel to another sequel isn't a bad idea. The only problem is that sometimes they usually end up as crap. I'll give you an example. The Santa Claus. What a classic Christmas film with its clever story and beautiful settings. Then there was Santa Claus 2, which is even better. And then comes Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause. What a disappointment that was. The story was slow, the jokes are stale, and it just seems unpleasant to watch. I'm sure one reason people hate it was that Bernard is not featured in it due to some contract issues. The film has been known for being nominated 5 Raspberry Awards. These awards go to the worst films of the year. It was nominated for Worst Actor, Worst Supporting Actor, Worst Screen Couple, Worst Sequel or Prequel, and Worst Excuse for Family Entertainment, which I agree on that one. Now some people say the film is okay, but for me, I don't like it. It seems like the second sequels are just an insult to its predecessors sometimes. Now I'm not saying every second sequel is bad, I'll get into that later on. But anyway, the second sequel section just seems like a turn in the wrong direction from the other two films. Good example is Neverending Story 3. They didn't even bother making it look good. It's just a horrible mishmash of crap. The film really goes beyond jumping the shark. Some of them have mixed opinions like Back to the Future Part 3, and some of them are bad and not necessary like Psycho 3 and Leprechaun 3, which is no surprise because the whole Leprechaun series is unnecessary. And then there's the second sequels that just seem a bit lousy like Shrek 3. I just thought the film was pretty bland. And then there's Shrek 4, which I have yet to see, but what I've heard, it's not perfect, but at least it's better than the second sequel. They usually try something new, and it tends to either work or not work, like Halloween 3. It started off with a fresh new idea, but people were outraged because of the absence of Michael Myers, and they just wanted to see the same stuff over and over again. There are also second sequels that go straight to DVD, and they usually end up as crap and are rarely any good. One thing that annoys me about second sequels is that sometimes the titles can be a bit weird. Good example is Naked Gun 33 and a Third. The title is supposed to be a joke, but it's so misleading that it makes people think that there are other Naked Gun films, but Naked Gun 33 and a Third is actually a second sequel. And then there's Serious Sam 3 Before First Encounter. The game is supposed to be a prequel to the first Serious Sam game, so why is it called Serious Sam 3 when it's not a continuation of the Serious Sam games? And then there's Final Fantasy. They really screw around with the titles when localizing them in the US, like how Final Fantasy 3 was actually Final Fantasy 6. I think they eventually fixed the confusing timeline, but I don't know, I'm not a hardcore fan of Final Fantasy. Sometimes second sequels can be a bit confusing, or sometimes released out of order like Street Fighter 3. It took so long for that game to be released because of all the upgrades they gave to Street Fighter 2. And then there was the Street Fighter Alpha games that they made. The Brave Little Toaster films are also known for being released out of order. When the first one was made, they had plans of making a sequel, Brave Little Toaster to the Rescue, and a second sequel, Brave Little Toaster Goes to Mars. They were planned at the same time, so you'd think they would come out in their respective orders, right? Well, apparently it turns out the second sequel was released first because they already finished it. They introduced new characters, but some of them aren't given much of an introduction like Ratso and Wintenstein, or whatever you pronounce his name. The characters already know who they are, but this is the first time that we see them, which can lead to a bit of confusion. A year later, the real sequel was released, filling in the time gap. I still find it weird that they released them out of order. I guess they wanted them to be released as the books were, since Brave Little Toaster is based off of a book, and there was only that and Goes to Mars that were based off of a book. To the Rescue wasn't based off of a book of the series. Now there are a couple of good second sequels that show that they really put in some effort into them. There's Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, which people say is the best Nightmare on Elm Street film out there. There's also Star Trek 3, which brings back Spock since he was killed in the other film. And then there's Toy Story 3. I actually had doubts about this film, but when I saw the film, I was really impressed and got a little bit teary-eyed near the end. And then we have second sequels coming out in the future, like Iron Man 3. Will it be a success or end miserably? Who knows, just have to wait and see. Now let's talk about second sequels in video games. For the most part, there are a lot of good ones out there like Crash 3, Spyro 3, Mario 3, Sonic 3, Jak 3, and so on. I've only seen a few bad ones like Bubsy 3D, which is no surprise, and ToeJam and Earl 3. It just seems like in the video game industry, they put a lot more effort into making second sequels unlike what the film industry does. Before I end this rant or gripe-a-thon, if you want to call it, I'm going to briefly talk about second sequels that are shrouded in mystery. There was going to be a second sequel to Jazz Jackrabbit, but Epic Games couldn't find a publisher and so the game was scrapped. What we got instead was a Game Boy Advance game that is supposedly the third game. But a lot of people despise this, as the company licensed the game but had nothing to do with it, and let some other company do the work, which led to the disgrace of Jazz Jackrabbit. So yeah, this one doesn't count as a second sequel. Probably one of the most notable second sequels that was canned and never released and looked pretty promising was Mega Man Legends 3. Fans of the series were looking forward to see a return of the Mega Man Legends characters and such, but Capcom canceled it as they said that people weren't that interested in the game. After that, they would later kill off another project called Mega Man Universe, and then later kill off Mega Man themselves. Even the creator of Mega Man asked politely if he could finish Mega Man Legends 3 and Universe with another game company, but also give Capcom's permission. But the company just said F you and just gave the character a boot to the head. Well, at least Archie Counts is giving the Blue Bomber the respect he deserves and keeping him alive. There were also the mystery of Sonic Adventure 3. People say Sonic Next Gen is Adventure 3 because of its similar concept with the gameplay. Some say Unleashed was Adventure 3, but so far, there is no true Sonic Adventure 3, and who knows if they'll ever make one. Probably one of the most popular second sequels that remains shrouded in mystery is Ghostbusters 3. Rumors were spreading like crazy about the film. From what I've heard, or at least one of them, is that the Ghostbusters have aged and aren't what they used to be, so they hire a new group of people to become the next generation of ghostbusting. I'm not sure if this is true or not, but who knows if they'll ever make one. Although people have stated there's already a third one mainly because of the video game that was released in 2009, as the plot acts like a second sequel to the series, and it's a pretty good game. So who knows if they'll make a film version of Ghostbusters 3, but for me, I'm just sticking with the game. It seems like second sequels in general seem to be mixed opinions, whether they be good, bad, or just okay, but for me, I'm just not a fan of second sequels in films. Probably because when it comes to sequels and mostly second sequels in filming, it can be a real challenge trying to make them better than its predecessor. Yeah, it seems like this rant was pretty lousy, but at least it was 10 times better than that horrible rant I made years ago. Whether you like this video or not, it seems like the reason why I think this is lousy is because I'm coming close to retiring from making rants and commentaries very soon. But before I do, I'm gonna make one more rant about a certain subject that's been bugging me for years and I just gotta get it all out. So until then, this is MeltingMan234 signing out.